everybody. This week we are studying one of my absolute favorite guard passes, one of my strongest, the most effective, and is still used in competition widely today. This is the knee cut pass, where we're going to point our opponent's feet down and away, and we're going to pass through the middle of the legs by driving our knee across their hip and taking the guard pass. I'll show you guys briefly what it looks like, and then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the video. The video is going to be made up of 4 sections. Section 1 is going to be about beating your opponent's lower body. How do we get through our opponent's lower body defenses? Things like the knee shield and the lasso. Once we learn how to deal with our opponent's lower body defenses, Section 2 is going to be about how do we deal with the upper body defenses. Hand frames, elbow frames, how do we counter their elbow escape, how do we counter their underhook escape, things like that. Then once we get through those 2 pieces, you'll have a really good idea of how to do this pass. Then once you have those 2 sections down and you understand how to do the pass, we'll move on to sections 3 and 4. Section number 3 is going to be about breaking our opponent's connections in a way that allows us to go right into the knee cut. Some of these common connections that we've worked in the past, for instance, collar cuff bicep guard, De La Riva guard, things like this. How do we break those connections in a way that lead right into the knee cut so that you can seamlessly work your knee cut pass into your live rolling? And then section 4, the last section of the video, is going to be about connecting the knee cut pass to other guard passes. So we've learned the double under and we've learned the over under, and the knee cut pass can pair very well with either one of those attacks, and you can use all 3 of them and mix and match, and you'll see. So let's get started with just a brief introduction to the knee cut, and then we'll start talking about how to beat the lower body. So, and I want you to line up with your head toward the camera. I'm going to pull your head back in frame just a bit. There we go. So the general idea of a knee cut pass here is we point the feet down and away. I step to the inside with one of my legs. I go through and control the pockets of the hip. And then once I control the pockets of the hip, we come through and we manage the transition from the hips to the head and shoulders. Okay, that's going to be it. I'll show it one more time. Let's put your head another angle. So first off, you need to learn how to read our opponent. Remember, if the feet are higher than the knees, we come in, we point the feet up and away. We don't bother trying a knee cut pass if the feet are higher than the knees. But if I see the feet are lower than the knees when I approach, I point the feet down and away, I step to the inside, and I prepare to pass through the legs. Once the feet are pointed down and away, the feet are pointed away from me, the next step in guard passing is to control the pocket of the hips. I put my right elbow in the pocket of this hip, and my knee goes in the pocket of this hip here. And then lastly, we need to manage the transition from the hips to the head and shoulders, the so-called cranial shift. And when I do that, a lot of times our focus is going to be on controlling our opponent's elbow and taking that elbow out of position as we make the cranial shift. So that's the basics of the knee cut pass. Let's go through a lot of the nuance and fine details here. And can you put your head toward the camera? So I point the feet down and away. The first big issue you're going to run into in your knee cut is a knee shield. When I try to come in for my knee cut pass, the knee comes in front of me, he frames with his arms, and it's really hard to get through. So I'm going to show you guys how to prevent the knee shield, and then I'm going to show you guys how to deal with the knee shield if he successfully gets it in. First, preventing. I step to the inside position. Now I want there to be hip exposure, meaning I want to be able to see his hip with nothing in my way. If this knee is between me and the hip, it is now going to be really hard for me to get into and wedge the pocket of the hip in a good, meaningful way. So when I start to pass, if I ever see that this knee starts to point at me and it's blocking the pocket of the hip, a really easy way to generate hip exposure is to walk back to the center line. Okay? So watch what happens to Ant's knees. Right now it's pointing at this angle, and it's directly in my way to the hip. But watch as I walk back to the center. naturally square up with me, and I can wedge the pocket of the hip. Here. I put my hand and my wrist in nice and deep. I don't want my hand on the top of the belly. If I'm here, like so, and Ant drives his knee shield across my arm, he's gonna beat that every time. My arm is not strong enough. I don't want there to be pressure on the wrist joint. Therefore, I want to shoot my arm deep until my wrist catches on the hip bone. Not my hand, my wrist. And then I connect knee and elbow together to make this V-frame. Now, I have the pocket of Ant's left hip controlled, and now I'm going to take my right knee and bring it toward the pocket of his right hip. Here. As I do this, Ant is going to be trying to bring this knee shield in, and it's up to me to use my elbow as a frame against his thigh. If he tries to go over my arm with the knee, I flare my elbow open. If he tries to go under, I close it to my body. If he goes over, I flare, and if I try to get over my elbow is framing that knee away. If he tries to come underneath the arm, I pinch the elbow. And we're caught in this game where I'm monitoring the leg to keep that knee shield out. Okay? So that's preventing the knee shield. Once again, I come in and I'm looking for hip exposure. If there's hip exposure right away, wonderful, take it. If I come in, I try my knee cup pass and he has that knee in my way and I don't have that hip exposure, I can't get my hand inside the knee and to the pocket of the hip. Then I just walk back toward the center. And now I can get my hand in nice and easy. Once again, going wrist deep so the wrist is on the hip bone and connecting knee and elbow together. Now I have Ant's left hip controlled. Now my right knee is going to go to the right hip. And my elbow keeps his knee shield out the whole time. Now from here, my knee drives down to the pocket of the hip. I'm going to show you guys how to deal with the upper body later. And then we get through to our pin. So that's preventing the knee shield. Let's look at some methods of beating the knee shield now. What happens if the knee shield actually comes in? How do we deal with it? I come in, I look for that hip exposure, and I get it. Now as I go across, I try my best to keep this knee out, but Ant is a good man. He frames, bumps, off balances me, and does whatever, and the knee shield comes in. Okay? So now from here, let's rotate just a bit. We have this knee shield in front of me. Okay, so now if I try to go into the knee cut pass, I can't get through this leg. So we've got a few different ways to deal with the knee cut. A few different ways to deal with the knee shield. We've seen one of them before. Do you remember what it is? Think about the over-under pass and the double under pass. I wedge my arm in, elbow deep at the ankle, and I force Ant's leg to straighten. Ant needs his knee bent for there to be a good knee shield here. If I take Ant's ankle and I pull it away from his butt, the knee shield starts to straighten and go away. We saw how I could dive in and go into over-under passes, double under passes, and things like that. But another option, after I lift, is to take my hand, pummel it inside, into the pocket of the hip, and now once again my elbow is playing defense on that knee, just like we did before. When Ant tries to bring that knee shield in now, I flare it open if he tries to go over, I pinch it if he tries to go under, and we're back to the same game here. So again, this knee shield, one of the options was an ankle lift. You go here, pummel in, and we pop our knee through. And so now the pocket of both hips are controlled. Another option we have, okay, that's probably one of my least favorite. I'm going to show you guys a couple now that I really, really favor. The first one is going to be a knee bump, okay? In a knee bump, I want to bring my knee up through the middle like I'm trying a knee cut pass, like so. But obviously there's no knee cut pass here because his knee's in my way. But do you remember how we shut out knees? You get to the pocket of the hip. And for this one, you don't have to get all the way to the pocket of the hip. Even going toward it will help. I'm going to use my right kneecap, and I'm going to point it and blade it into the pocket of Ant's top hip. Watch what happens to this knee as I do that. So I stand up, I take my knee to the pocket of the hip, and look how that knee shield gets forced out. My elbow comes back to the inside, and now we're back to the same position where now my elbow is once again playing defense. Ant tries to bring the knee shield in, and my elbow takes care of it, controlling the pocket of the hip. So that was once again the knee bump, where I come up, knee comes through, and then I use my knee to bump his knee out by taking my knee to the pocket of the hip. Right there. Okay, one more time. I go up. Once that knee starts pulling away, my elbow pummels inside his knee, and I shut that knee out. Okay, so that's the knee bump. One of my favorites. Very simple, very elegant. Another one that I greatly favor. This one is super strong, probably one of my strongest guard passes, and it's a lower leg knee cut. Usually in a knee cut, we cut over his upper leg, over his thigh. But when he has a knee shield in, I can't move in this direction. I can't move forward. His knee shield stops me from going in that direction. So I'm going to turn my body, and I'm going to cut out in this direction, over the lower leg, between the knee and the ankle. His knee shield can't stop me from moving that way. His knee shield only stops me from moving this way. So I come in for my knee cut. I try my best to keep this knee shield out, but it comes in. So for a lower leg knee cut, I'm going to start with a control on the lapel. Do you remember that all of our guard passes, our last step in guard passing is the cranial shift, shifting our control from the hips to the head and shoulders. I'm just gaining control of the head a little sooner now, okay? I'm asserting my control over the head indirectly through the clothing while I'm still in front of the knee shield. Okay, so with this grip on the head, my right arm is now going to come down, and my right arm is going to control the bottom leg in one of two ways. I can either come in and grip the gi pants inside the knee, and if he's wearing a gi, this is my favorite. Otherwise, I can take my fist right into the pocket of the hip. Now, both of these grips, whether it's the grip on the gi pants or the fist in the pocket of the hip, both of these are designed to keep his knee away from his chest and keep this hip exposed. If I come here, like so, I force my fist to, like so. If I ask Ant to bring his right knee to his chest, my arm on the ground makes that impossible. Go ahead. Right there, right? Same thing, if I get this grip, and after I pass it out from his legs, not here, and I ask Ant to bring his knee to his chest, this grip on the gi pants will stop him from doing so. It'll keep the pocket of the hip exposed and keep the chest exposed for me. So those are our two grips. Let's come this way a little bit. So I get here, I run into the knee shield. We saw the ankle lift. We saw the knee bump. Now we're looking at a lower leg knee cut. I come in, I control the head indirectly through the clothing. If it's no-gi, I could also use a collar tie or a reverse collar tie, but in the gi, I prefer the lapel. My right arm goes in to control either the fist on the pocket of the hip or the grip on the gi pants. Either one is okay. My head goes to the top shoulder. This is going to help me flatten him out later. Now, as I tripod here, my knees come up. I want my right knee to come higher than this leg. If Ant keeps his leg higher than my knee, I won't be able to free this leg. So I'm going to use this grip, and this is why I prefer the gi pants as opposed to a fist on the floor, because I can push this knee down to the floor and stop it from coming up. So here, as Ant tries to follow my leg up, he can't. Once my knee is higher than his lower leg, I turn my body side on and I cut my knee over his shin instead of over the upper leg. Now I can freely walk around. Now the last thing to this pass, this lower leg knee cut, is beating this knee. Okay, we have the bottom knee under control. Here, we have to beat this knee. Ant is going to keep this knee tight to his chest. My goal, once I come in and pass, I have this and this. He's going to keep the knee tight. I'm going to come around in front of the knee. I'm going to wedge my ribs and my body inside the knee. And and I come back into the pocket of the hips. Now I control the head, and we have our pass. That pass, guys, that lower leg knee cut, one of my strongest. I'd say I succeed at that pass more than 50% of the time. It's incredibly effective. Let's look at it one more time. So we've seen that I can prevent the knee shield by wedging the pocket of the hip. Really good, I might be able to keep the knee shield out. Really good people are gonna find a way to get it in anyway, and then we're gonna have to learn to deal with it. We have the ankle lift, we have the knee bump, and now we have the lower leg knee cut. I take a grip here to control the bottom leg, either on the grip D-pants or a fist on the floor on the hip. My left hand controls the head indirectly through the lapel. And it doesn't matter if you set this grip first and then this, or if you control the head first and then the leg. The order doesn't matter. I will say that getting this grip is harder. So this one might be an easier grip to get first, because if he's playing defense with his hands, I might need to use my hands to fight and help me work my way to the lapel. Now my right hand comes, controls the lower body. My head goes into the top shoulder. And now as I tripod, my whole goal is to get my right kneecap, the trapped kneecap, higher than his bottom leg. I want my kneecap to be between these two legs so it can cut out to the side from between these legs. If my kneecap is underneath the leg, my leg will be stuck. So I need my kneecap to be protruding here, and then I go. I set the head control, the grip on the leg, and I come up. If he tries to follow me with this leg, I just punch it down and I don't let it follow. Try to hook with that leg. Yep. Now I turn my body side on and I cut my kneecap over the lower leg and slide. Now we walk around and I get my body inside his top knee. And now we have our control. You right?
Yeah.
So, what was that?
It's a tight pass.
Tight pass, a lot of pressure. So that's preventing the knee shield and beating the knee shield. Let's talk about the lasso. Another lower body defense. When I come in and Ant realizes to his horror that he can't get the knee shield in, his next thing is going to be a frame on my chest, both hands, and bring his foot over in front of me. And now he can use his foot to push me away, and now I'm nowhere near the guard pass. So let's talk about prevention first, preventing the lasso. When Ant tries to bring that foot up and over, his goal is to get his foot inside and in front of and lower than my shoulder. In front of and lower than my shoulder. So, when I see him trying to put that lasso in, I lean my head away and I lower my shoulder. I drive in, I see that foot coming up, and I'm like, oh shoot, I go here. Can't get the lasso in? It's not easy. Now that he can't get the lasso in, I drive my way back in, and I'm right back in position to work my way through the upper body, where we're gonna take the elbow out of position and pass. We'll talk more about the upper body in a little bit. So that's preventing the lasso. I try to keep the knee shield out and I succeed. He can't get the knee shield in, so now he's gonna try to get the foot in. I lean away and low. Ant tries to get his foot in front of me. It's hard. I drive back in and I complete the pass. Now, what if the lasso does get in? Okay. I see the leg coming up. I try to lean away, but he gets that foot in anyway. I see a lot of people stay here and try to pressure in and drag this leg, and these things can work. But one of the simplest things to do is just reset. Because what happened? The foot pointed at me. And we know we can never tolerate the foot pointing at us. That's back to like the first step of guard passing, right? So if he points that foot back at me, I'm gonna reset, point the foot away, and I'm just gonna recycle the system, reboot the system. If he tries to get that lasso in again, I try to stop it. Lasso, I try to stop it. If he succeeds, I point the foot away, and I come back into the hip. Okay. So we've seen preventing the lasso by this motion, And now we've seen we beat the lasso by just resetting. We'll see other ways to beat the lasso in the future. For instance, if that lasso comes in, we can pummel to the inside, pass the leg across, and find ourselves in a leg drag position, in the flank position for a leg drag pass. But we'll cover this in the future when we cover leg drag passing. But for now, with that lasso, just reset. That's the easiest. I'm here, he comes, I keep the knee out, he can't get the knee out, so he brings the foot in, and then I just reset. And that's most of the problems you're going to run into with the lower body. The knee shield and the lasso. I showed you how to prevent the knee shield by wedging the elbow in the hip. And I showed you how to deal with the knee shield with the ankle lift, with the lower leg knee cut, and then what was the third one? Remind me. Ankle lift, lower leg knee cut.
Tucking down to prevent the lasso?
Nope, the knee shield. Oh, the knee bump.
Okay.
Yeah, the knee bump. Real quick. So we had the ankle lift, lifting the ankle, forcing that leg to extend. Using my knee. The second one was using my knee to drive into the pocket of the hip and pummeling my elbow back inside. The knee bump. And then we had this lower leg knee cut. Very, very strong. Okay. Then we saw the lasso. Preventing the lasso with that position. And then if the lasso does come in, just reset, point the feet away, restart the system all over again. That's the lower body. Now, let's deal with the upper body. As I try to drive my way into the upper body, Ant's almost underneath side control. The legs are out of the equation. He only has his arms left in my way. So Ant's focus is going to be on side control escapes at that point. What are our two strongest forms of side control escape? Think back to our foundations program, side control bottom weak. We have the elbow escape. All right, we use our elbow to frame away and make space. Do you remember the second? Do you remember the second? That's mount.
Okay.
No, that's okay. Side control, the underhook escape.
Oh.
Remember that one? Yeah. So we have the elbow escape and the underhook escape. So as we go to complete our pass, those are two of the most common escape attempts we're going to have to learn to shut down. To shut down the elbow escape, we're going to try to control his elbow position so he can't use his elbow. And to shut down the underhook escape, we're going to try to get our own underhook so that he doesn't have an underhook. And let me show you how I do these. So as I come in, knee cut. Maybe I bump that knee shield out, no lassos come in, and everything's looking good. One thing Ant might want to do here, one, he's framing, this would be good. He'd be framing like this to get his lasso in. Another thing you might want to do is take this elbow inside my knee, here, because now as I complete the knee cut pass, he can frame my leg and get his knee back in place. So one of the first things is I never want to accept Ant having inside elbow position. If his elbow goes inside, I immediately control that arm, and I blade my knee back inside, so there's no more elbow escape. If he pummels it again, that's fine. I re-pummel. We're fighting. There might be a little jostling. Go ahead, and let's do a few cycles. There might be a little jostling here for dominant elbow position. Okay, that's fine. It's normal. It's all part of the normal hustle bustle. Another option we have is to control the elbow. So not just have our knee inside the elbow, but to physically control it. Now, a lot of times I'll use these together. He gets his elbow inside, I blade, I get my knee inside, and now I control the elbow. You can either grab the elbow indirectly through the clothing, or you can grab the elbow itself, and we're going to pull that elbow out of position. So now as Ant tries to hit his elbow escape, go ahead. He can't use his elbow to frame. And one of my favorite things to do is to take the elbow and drive it across the body, because now I have access to kimuras and I have back exposure. So, one more time, shutting down his elbow escape. I come in. I see the elbow inside, I blade my own knee inside. I never tolerate Ant having inside elbow position. Never let your opponent keep their elbows to the inside position as much as possible. Okay? Once I'm here, once I blade my knee inside, we control the elbow, either indirectly through the clothing or directly by grabbing the elbow itself. If Ant gets his elbow inside, and I can't access the elbow, and I can't really get my own knee inside, Another option we can do to take the elbow out of position is control the cuff. So now as Ant tries to use his elbow escape, go ahead. Use your elbow escape. He can't get his elbow out of position. Once again, I can force his arm across the body. We have our same Kimura grips and back exposure. So that's dealing with the elbow escape. I'm going to show one more that's related. As I come in, maybe he doesn't use his elbows, maybe he just uses his hands like he was doing before. I mean, we could go here to the wrist. It's okay. But we can still go right to the elbow too. Okay, even though he's not doing an elbow escape, I can preemptively be ready for the elbow escape. If I grab the wrist and try to push the wrist off, yeah, I get the hand out of the way, but he can still use his elbow. If I'm here, I take the elbow grip. Now, rather than just slamming into the elbow, which might cause a quick hyperextension, or if I put a lot of weight into the hands and I try to move the arm, it's hard to move. So I get the grip, and now watch how I'm going to pull my chest away from his hand, just ever so slightly. Once my chest, you guys can't even see it, but my weight is coming off the hands, and now Ant's hand is just floating in front of me. Now that his hand is floating, I can take the arm across so easy. If it's reinforced by my body weight, I can't really move it. But if I go here, I can move it very easy. Once again, I shove the elbow across the body, and now we have Kimura's back exposure, or we just have side control, which is fine too. So, we want to control the near side elbow as much as possible to stop him from elbow escaping. That is one key insight of beating the upper body. Now, the second very common escape is the underhook escape. Let me show just a quick, brief recap on this. If he is in side control, and I can take this arm and punch in an underhook. Now I can use this underhook to kind of throw his body weight over the top of me. Come here, and now I'm wrestling. I'm turning up into him, I'm wrestling him, taking his back, etc. That underhook escape is very, very strong escape. And the people who are good at it are quite good at it. And we have to be ready to shut it down. So, put your head toward the camera. I prevent the knee shield. I'm coming in now. Once again, like I mentioned, if Ant is good, he's not going to wait for me to be in side control to start his escapes. Ant is going to be starting his elbow escape partway through my pass. Ant is going to be trying his underhook escape partway through my pass. He's not going to wait for me to settle. He knows if I settle, it's harder for him to escape. So as I come through, we saw how to do with the elbow escape. Let's look at the underhook. As I come through, it's very common that people are going to fish this underhook. And, stay down for a second, if I'm not careful, if I don't patiently manage the transition from the hips up to the head and shoulders, if I don't patiently manage that cranial shift, here's what will happen. I see the guard pass. I'm like, oh, I get really excited, I go for it, but he uses that underhook, and he ends up getting behind me or getting into my legs, things like that. So when I'm passing and I see my partner punching an underhook, I'm immediately going to address the underhook. I'm not going to go forward anymore. If I go forward and he has that underhook, he's going to, not even prop yet, just like bridge and shuck me off with your arm. No, push me over. Yes! Yes. So when I come up, and I see this, I stop moving forward because he wants me going that way. As I come in, he wants to bump me that way. So I'm here, the underhook comes in. First thing I do is I post. Understand that with the underhook, Ant wants to get his shoulder underneath my armpit. Go ahead, to this position. Good. If I post, if I hit a cross bicep post, Ant, go to use your underhook. He can't get up to the position he needs to get to. This holds his arm in position long enough for me to pummel in my own underhook. And now I have the underhook. Now that I'm so tight, if Ant goes to repummel the underhook, there's not enough space. Sometimes this might require a couple cycles. He punches it in, I block, I pummel and he pummels. But I'm I'm always going to win in the end because of this cross bicep post. He cannot use his underhook. Even when he has the underhook, it's useless. Go to use your underhook. Useless. Pummel in. If he pummels in, that's fine. I just keep my left hand where it is until I eventually get tight enough. I keep my cross bicep post where it is until I secure a deep underhook. Now, once you've got the underhook, that does not necessarily mean you're out of the woods. He still has a free arm. What's he gonna do with this arm? Maybe, or just go back to your elbow. Yeah, now if he goes to an elbow skip, I have the underhook, but nope, stay down. Right here. I have the underhook, but if I force the underhook, he still has an elbow escape here. Exactly. So I'm here, he takes an underhook. I block, I re-pummel. Now if I feel Ant going for his elbow escape, I control either the elbow directly or the gi, and I take that elbow out of position. Now if he goes to hit an elbow escape, not there. If he goes to hit an underhook escape, not there. And we're through the upper body now. So that's kind of the long and short of dealing with the upper body as we go through. First, we have to deal with our opponent's frames, which is going to be the elbow escape. We have to deal with the elbow escape, and we do that by controlling the elbow and taking it out of position. You can also do it with an inside position with a near side underhook, but I'm not going to go into that quite yet. This is enough for you. Control that elbow, take it out of position. That's good enough. On the far side, your opponent wants to get an underhook so they can turn into you. We want to get the underhook so we can flatten them out and keep that far shoulder stuck to the floor. Understand that it's the underhook that allows me to turn in. Let me show that really quick. Head toward the camera. Here, if Ant is under my arm, look how he can start to use this arm to off-balance me very slowly. Punch your arm toward the ceiling, bridge, and I can't stop him from turning in. I can't keep him flat. If I do try to keep him flat from here, I run the risk of him turning and rolling me over. But if I have the underhook here, and I ask Ant to turn into me, turn to your belly, my chest is in the way of and pushing this far shoulder down. But if this arm comes underneath me, he can slip this shoulder underneath my body, and I can't push and keep that shoulder down anymore. So that's the why the underhook is so important. So we learn how to deal with the lower body, knee shields, preventing it, and then beating it. We learn how to deal with the lasso, preventing it and beating it. Now as we go through to the upper body, we learn how to stop the elbow escape. We learn how to stop the underhook escape. You guys have a lot of really good tools for the knee cut pass now. Let's start moving on to section 3 of the video. Breaking our opponent's connections in ways that lead right into the knee cut pass. One very common connection is collar cuff bicep.